Welcome to the simulation again, fellow travelers. Question: do you ever feel like life is just passing you by? Maybe you feel left behind, wandering the universe dry, dusty, and alone. Well, not to worry. You're never alone here in the simulation. You might just find a home among the autophage. So, if you don't want to find yourself dismantled on some distant planet with a craving for Atlantidium, hit like and subscribe. As a warning, this video contains spoilers for the story of No Man's Sky. Alright, let's get into it. Among the many entities we'll meet in our time in the simulation, probably about, I'd say, a third of them will be Korvax. The Korvax possess a storied past, from their ancient civilizations now lost to war and catastrophe, to their enslavement at the hands of the Gek and the struggle for freedom. They wear their identity proudly in the form of their bodies, which they call envelope, and we know them from the call of their mechanical voices to the blinking lights and shiny metal faces. They are souls in constructed and modified bodies, ghosts in the machine in every sense, but even they don't live forever. Machines break down and are discarded. Vessels decay and souls are disconnected and become echoes. When a Korvax echo has nowhere left to go, when the convergence has rejected or banished them, they're forgotten by the living. But that doesn't mean that they have forgotten what it was like to walk among their fellow Korvax, to experience the simulation, not as a remainder or something lost, but as a being, whole and real. Thus, they'll build a new envelope from parts long left to rot. They'll return, different of course, but alive again. These are the Autophage, forgotten by their former race, rejected by the convergence, but still they persist. That persistence is the very heart of the Korvax, their culture and their history. It remains alive even after disconnection, and so the Autophage forge new paths for themselves, build new lives, and form new connections. It's a hard road to choose, but giving up isn't in their nature. Normally, disconnected Korvax echoes drift through the simulation until they eventually fade to nothing. Those who become Autophage have had some help, and that help came from an unexpected place. You may find planets where the local environment's been taken over and corrupted by a substance known as Atlantidium. It turns everything to its will, even sentinels. It isn't just a pretty purple crystal. It's very much alive. It grows in, around, and through machines, and infuses them with its own mind and will. It is this strange substance that's allowed disconnected Korvax echoes to live again, keeping them together so that they can create a new envelope to inhabit. The process is not an easy one, but for those forgotten echoes, it's better than oblivion. How this occurs is not entirely understood by outsiders, and it seems that the Autophage don't speak much about it, but it is fair to say that they no longer consider themselves Korvax, which is fair enough, since the Korvax feel the same. As for their new envelopes, forget the clean lines and efficient machines of their former lives. No, their new bodies defy classification and function. Cobbled together from parts left behind, scrap metal, rusted bits of old ships, even old sentinel parts, Autophage shells are unique and strange. They bedeck themselves in draped cloth to hide sparking machines and grinding gears, and all around their encampments can be found piles of scrap which will sometimes yield valuable items if searched. Everything they are and everything they build comes from what was once forgotten. In this way, they give new life to that which was left behind to wither and rot. But what of Atlantidium and its corruption? It doesn't just exist in the Autophage. Likely the Autophage are simply a byproduct of this strange crystalline substance and its properties. If you are able to access dissonant systems, more on that later, you'll find planets nearly entirely colonized by the growth of large purple crystals. Some smaller formations will yield Atlantidium, while larger ones will return radiant shards, which are known to bypass the security systems of sentinel ships. This makes sense, given that the substance from which they're made, Atlantidium, is capable of corrupting sentinels of all sizes, from small, flying drone sentinels to quadrupeds and up. By mining these crystal formations, you'll gain both Atlantidium and radiant shards, which are much sought after by those seeking to use sentinel tech for their own purposes. You can also feed it to dying echoes remaining in half-built or destroyed envelopes, allowing their echoes to remain a while longer and perhaps rebuild yet again. You may have yet to locate any Autophage. In fact, they're not easy to find, but you'll likely have seen signs of their existence. Outside of finding one of their encampments, you may stumble across one of these dying or damaged Autophage, and by feeding Atlantidium to its circuits, you'll give it another chance at life, yet still, this will yield little information that will help you find more of them. They're incredibly elusive, and your first step will be to find the dissonant system if you want to really begin your search. Once you do, you'll begin a long series of tasks involving the Autophage, at the end of which you'll create a new system that will have a spectral color of purple on the galaxy map. From then on, more of these systems will appear, and you'll be able to travel to them, but that's another story. To find the Autophage, you'll need to upgrade your multi-tool with a scan harmonizer that you can use to scan for them. Normal scanning tech simply won't do it. At the anomaly, Nada and some of the folks you find there will guide you through the process, and eventually you'll have the ability to see them, because the problem with finding the autophage is, well, they're invisible. They've managed to cloak themselves in their technology from prying eyes. Thus, they've kept themselves safe from the connected Korvax, who view them as, at worst, abominations. From there on, you'll be able to see their camps when you find them, but finding them is another issue. You see, there is no way to scan for them from space. In order to find their larger encampments, you'll have to land on a dissonant planet and find an object called an echolocator to scan for them. These items resonate at just the right frequency to find them anywhere on a dissonant world. They can be obtained by destroying dissonant resonators or corrupted sentinel quadrupeds. Once you've used one, you'll find a harmonic camp, and there, you'll get a chance to learn what the autophage are all about. When you first land at a camp, it'll appear empty. Tents open and flapping in the wind, piles of sparking circuitry laying all over. There'll be a large locked case, behind which will be a strange-looking weapon, and from the large construct at the center of the camp, alarms will blare. The camp's in lockdown, and only you can lift it. Of course, the camp isn't empty, and one scan with your scan harmonizer will reveal several autophage watching you, all cloaked. Even if you can see them, there's not much you can do just yet, so your best bet is to get to the terminal and see if you can lift the lockdown. Now, you'll find two options on the terminal, one of which is to input a series of glyphs, though you don't know which glyphs or which order to put them in, so go to the next option, which is to scan the memory banks of the terminal. Scanning the memory returns a series of simple equations, the answers to which will give you 3 individual numbers. These correspond to the numbers of glyphs and the order to put them in. Return to the root and select the first option again, and put in your glyphs. Done. Now, it's worth noting that the glyphs used are the same 16 portal glyphs, which have their own special significance. I've discussed it before, and will likely do so again, but to keep things simple, they're each significant symbols tied to the life of the simulation in some way. Once the old lockdown is lifted, you can open the locked weapon case. You can also access some other functions, one of which is to locate dissonant spikes. This will lead you to a crashed Sentinel interceptor, which you can repair and claim. I'll discuss this process further in another video on Sentinel tech, but it'll require several of the items and resources you found on your way to find this very camp. You can also exchange void motes for autophage tech, and there's an option to assemble a staff. You will by now be familiar with the process, though the item you made is likely of poor quality. You can here purchase more staff parts and combine them to create something better if you like. You can also buy tools, clothing, robotic limbs, all similar to those sported by the autophage around you. But to do this, you'll need void motes. Void motes are the main currency used by the autophage and can be obtained from them by gaining favor, performing tasks for them, and by searching piles of harmonic scrap around the camps. Void motes are unlike other resources you'll have found. They're brightly colored and likely have some kind of intelligence. This is because they're made from a highly refined form of Atlantidium. This process is currently unknown to travelers, and so the only source for obtaining them comes from the autophage themselves. Now, you can gain favor with the autophage by giving them gifts of resources. They'll each ask for something different. Once you've gained enough of a reputation among them, they'll trust you enough to offer you more tasks. These will have greater rewards. Some may ask you to create some valuable or rare resource. These are easy enough, while others will ask that you seek out a damaged autophage and offer them Atlantidium, allowing them to remain sentient. Others will ask that you hunt sentinels. These missions are difficult if you're not prepared, but you'll be rewarded handsomely for your trouble. It won't take long to gather enough void motes in this fashion to purchase whatever you need from the terminals, and soon you'll have a staff built with more impressive characteristics. Likely, you'll also have some new limbs, in case you lose one in combat or something. It happens to the best of us. As you get to know them, you'll learn a lot about the autophage, their society, and the way they live. You'll learn that they often wish to be left to themselves, constantly terrified of being discovered and hunted by their own people and roving sentinels alike. They're nomadic and live across the galaxy. They're rarely spotted, though, unless you have the tech to see them. You may find them near beacon sites, though if you don't use your scanner, they'll remain invisible. And sometimes, if you use your scanner, you'll find them quite randomly, keeping their own company and quite happily going about their business. They may still ask you for a favor, though. Finding them isn't easy, but once you do, you'll realize that they're all over the place. They've been here for some time, likely longer than the travelers ever have, hidden as they were among us. They live new lives, different lives, revenants brought back from the brink of oblivion. That kind of thing instills a new vigor to remain in a soul once nearly lost. They're the forgotten, now returned to the universe, so to speak, and it seems they have much to say. They're no longer Korvax, no longer connected to the Convergence. Those days are long behind them. Now they have each other, always trying to help their fellow autophage in need and willing to reward those who aid them. Their tech may be built from scraps and remnants, but it's far from inferior. They've developed ways of turning the old into something new and powerful, and they'll share it with you, as long as you're willing to respect their ways. I urge you to seek them out, help them when you can, and if you don't like working for nothing, don't worry. There is always something to get that's worth having. Well, I hope all that helps you make friends with some autophage in the future. They may look rough, patched together and glitchy, and well, that's because they are. But they're cool folks, and they're willing to trade some cool stuff if you're willing to help them out. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate everyone who sticks around, especially if you make it to the end. If you liked the video, please hit like. And if you really liked it, hit subscribe. And as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Oh, and before you go, I'm going to give a shout out to my patrons who help support the channel. Our $10 patrons Washuki at the artisan level. Head on over and sign up for some extra videos I don't put on the channel. It'd really help me out. And remember, just because you can't see any autophage around, doesn't mean they aren't there. Best to have a quick scan before you do something awkward. Thank you all. Bye, Internet.